This is SpaceTime, Series 28, Episode 140, for broadcast on the 28th of November 2025. Coming up on SpaceTime, Interstellar Comet 3i Atlas monitored from Mars. How the geomagnetic superstorm Ganon squeezed the Earth's plasmasphere into just a fifth of its normal size. And more delays for the futuristic Dream Chaser spaceplane. All that and more coming up on SpaceTime.
Welcome to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary.
The European Space Agency has pinpointed the position and trajectory of the interstellar Comet 3i Atlas, and they did it from Mars. Since 3i Atlas, the third known interstellar object to travel through our solar system, was discovered back on July the 1st, astronomers worldwide have been working to predict its exact trajectory. ESA has now improved the comet's predicted location by a factor of 10, thanks to the innovative use of observational data from its ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter spacecraft, which is circling the red planet. Until September, figuring out the location and trajectory of 3i Atlas relied purely on Earth-based telescopes. Then, between October the 1st and the 7th, ESA's ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter turned its eyes towards the interstellar comet from its orbit in Mars. See, the comet passed relatively close to Mars, approaching the red planet at a distance of just 29 million kilometres. That was on October the 3rd. So the Mars probe got about 10 times closer to 3i Atlas than telescopes on Earth could, and also it was observing the comet from a completely new viewing angle. The triangulation of its data, combined with data from Earth, has now helped astronomers make the comet's predicted path much more accurate. And yes, it's still acting like a comet, not like some sort of alien spacecraft. While astronomers initially anticipated a modest improvement in their observations, the result was an impressive 10-fold leap in accuracy, reducing the uncertainty of the comet's location. Because 3i Atlas is passing through our solar system extremely fast, travelling at speeds of up to 250,000 kilometres an hour, it'll soon vanish back into interstellar space, never to return. The improved trajectory allows astronomers to aim their instruments with more confidence, enabling more detailed science of this mysterious object. But it was quite a challenge to use the Mars orbiter's data to refine the interstellar comet's path through space. You see, the spacecraft's instruments are designed to point towards the nearby Martian surface, studying it in high resolution. This time, the camera was aimed at the skies above Mars in order to catch the tiny distant comet sweeping across a starry backdrop. Astronomers in the Planetary Defense Team at ESA's Near-Earth Object Coordination Center, who are used to determining the trajectories of asteroids and comets, had to account for the spacecraft's special location. Usually, trajectory observations are made from fixed observatories on the Earth, and occasionally from spacecraft in near-Earth orbit, like Hubble or Webb. So this new resulting data represents the first time that astrometric measurements from a spacecraft orbiting another planet have been officially submitted and accepted into the Minor Planet Center database. The database acts as a central clearinghouse for asteroid and cometary observations, streamlining the data collected by different telescopes, radar stations, and spacecraft. Even though 3i Atlas poses no threat to the Earth, it's still a valuable exercise for planetary defense. ESA routinely monitors near-Earth asteroids and comets, calculating orbits to provide warnings as required. And as this rehearsal with 3i Atlas shows, it can be very useful to triangulate data from Earth with observations from a second location in space. And the observations don't end there. The comet's currently being observed by ESA's Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer JUICE spacecraft. Though JUICE is much further from 3i Atlas than the Mars orbiter, it's seeing the comet just after its closest approach to the Sun, at a time when it's in a far more active state, and therefore releasing more volatiles into its coma and tail. Those volatiles can then be studied to work out more about what the comet's made from. Needless to say, we'll keep you informed. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, how the geomagnetic superstorm Ganon squeezed Earth's plasmasphere, and more delays for the futuristic Dream Chaser spaceplane. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. A new study shows how a major space weather event back in May last year dramatically shrank Earth's protective plasma layer and slowed its recovery. The findings, reported in the journal Earth, Planets and Space, will help improve solar storm forecasts and protect key space infrastructure. A geomagnetic superstorm is an extreme space weather event. It occurs when the sun releases massive amounts of energy in charged particles which are then flung towards the Earth. These sorts of storms are fairly rare, occurring maybe once every 20 to 25 years. So back on May the 10th and 11th last year, the strongest superstorm in over 20 years, known as the Ganon event or Mother's Day storm, slammed into planet Earth. Astronomers captured direct measurements of this extreme event and have now provided the first detailed observations of how a superstorm compresses Earth's plasmasphere, a protective layer of charged particles encircling the planet. The findings show how the plasmasphere and the ionosphere react during these most violent of solar storms. And it will help forecast disruptions to satellites, GPS navigation systems, and communications networks during extreme space weather events. Launched by the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency JAXA back in 2016, the Array satellite orbits through Earth's plasmasphere, measuring plasma waves and magnetic fields. And during the May 2024 superstorm, it was positioned perfectly to observe the extreme compression and slow recovery of the plasmasphere in unprecedented detail. In fact, this was the first time scientists obtained continuous direct measurements of the plasmasphere shrinking to such a low altitude during a superstorm. The study's lead author Atsuki Shinbori from the Nagoya University says astronomers track changes in the plasmasphere using the Array satellite and then use ground-based GPS receivers to monitor the ionosphere, the source of the charged particles that eventually refill the plasmasphere. Monitoring both layers showed how dramatically the plasmasphere contracted and why recovery took so long. The plasmasphere works with Earth's magnetic field to help limit the effect of harmful charged particles from the sun and space, protecting satellites and supporting Earth's natural shielding system against intense radiation. It normally extends far beyond the Earth, but during the May superstorm, the outer boundary moved from approximately 44,000 kilometres above Earth's surface to just 9,600 kilometres. The superstorm was triggered by many massive eruptions from the sun that flung billions of tons of charged particles towards Earth. Within 9 hours, the storm squeezed the plasmasphere to just a fifth of its normal size. And recovery was extremely slow, taking more than 4 days to refill. That's the longest recovery scientists have seen since they started monitoring the plasmasphere with the Array satellite back in 2017. The authors found the storm first caused intense heating near the poles, but this later led to a big drop in charged particles across the ionosphere, which slowed the recovery. Now, this prolonged disruption can affect GPS accuracy, it can interfere with satellite operations, and it complicates space weather forecasting. During the most intense phase of the superstorm, extreme solar activity compressed Earth's magnetic field, allowing charged particles to travel much further along magnetic field lines towards the equator. The result produced some impressive auroral activity at unusually low latitudes. Auroras typically occur near the polar regions. That's because Earth's magnetic field guides solar particles into the atmosphere there. But the strength of the May 2024 storm shifted the auroral zone from its usual position near the Arctic and Antarctic circles down to far more mid-latitude regions such as Japan, Mexico and southern Europe, places where aurorae are normally rarely seen. Now, it's a clear case of the stronger the geomagnetic storm, the further towards the equator the auroras will appear. About an hour after the storm struck, charged particles in Earth's upper atmosphere had surged at high latitudes near the poles and began streaming towards the polar caps. When the storm began to subside, the plasmasphere started to refill with particles from the ionosphere. Now, normally this process only takes a day or two, but in this case, recovery stretched over 4 days because of a phenomenon called a negative storm. Now, during a negative storm, particle levels in the ionosphere drop sharply across wide areas when intense heating changes the atmosphere's chemistry. This decreases oxygen ions that help produce hydrogen particles needed to refill the plasmasphere. These storms are invisible and detected only by satellites. The negative storm slowed recovery by altering atmospheric chemistry and cutting off the supply of particles to the plasmasphere. This link between negative storms and delayed recovery had never been clearly observed before. So the new findings are giving astronomers a clearer picture of how the plasmasphere changes and how energy moves through it. During the storm, numerous satellites experienced electrical issues or stopped transmitting data altogether. This included GPS signals being disrupted, radio communications being affected, and high radiation levels affecting astronauts. Knowing how long Earth's plasma layer takes to recover after such events is key to forecasting space weather events and safeguarding space technology. That's why there's an armada of spacecraft studying the Sun to try and better understand geomagnetic storms and how they impact the Earth. For example, NASA's Parker Solar Probe is studying our local star, monitoring everything from its atmosphere to its surface. Other active spacecraft monitoring the Sun include, but are not limited to, Solar Orbiter, SOHO, ACE, IRIS, WIND, Hinode, the Solar Dynamics Observatory, and Stereo. This report from ESA TV.
The Sun, a 4.5 billion-year-old nuclear fusion reactor at the heart of our solar system. This glowing ball of plasma with a core temperature of 15 million degrees Celsius is a yellow dwarf star. In cosmic terms, it's nothing special. But for us on Earth, the Sun is vital. It holds the planets in their orbits and provides heat, light and the energy for life. ESA's first mission to the Sun, Ulysses, was launched from Space Shuttle Discovery in October 1990. A joint mission with NASA, it was the first spacecraft to fly over the Sun's poles. Ulysses investigated the solar wind, the stream of charged particles emitted by the Sun. It envelops the solar system in a bubble known as the heliosphere. The mission discovered that the solar wind weakened over time and that the Sun's magnetic field reverses every 11 years.
4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff of SOHO and the Atlas vehicle on an international mission of solar physics.
One of the longest and most successful scientific missions of all time, SOHO, was launched in 1995, and it's still going strong. SOHO has given us a new insight into the Sun's structure and interior, monitoring the output of solar radiation and providing the first images of the star's turbulent outer shell. SOHO has also transformed space weather forecasting, helping us to monitor violent solar activity from flares and coronal mass ejections. A major space weather event has the potential to damage satellites, communications and power grids on the ground. Another mission that's helping us better understand the relationship between the Sun and Earth is Cluster. Flying in formation and in orbit for almost 20 years, the 4 Cluster satellites are giving us a three-dimensional view of the Earth's magnetic environment and its interaction with the solar wind. Now it's the turn of Solar Orbiter. With its advanced suite of scientific instruments, it'll build on the work of these past ESA missions.
Our scientists have designed this mission so that they improve significantly their knowledge of the solar wind and what drives the solar wind, and as well what creates and generates the solar cycles.
The eventual aim of all these missions is to not only better understand our nearest star, but also predict its behaviour. Knowledge that'll help protect all of us back here on Earth.
And in that report from ESA TV, we heard from Solar Orbiter Project Manager Cesar Garcia. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, more delays for the futuristic Dream Chaser spaceplane, and later in the science report, a new study has shown that dogs already came in a wide variety of shapes and sizes long before modern breeding patterns had been established. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. There's news of more delays for Sierra Space's Dream Chaser spaceplane, which now won't launch on its first orbital flight before about a year from now. The reusable spacecraft will eventually be used to carry supplies and equipment to and from the International Space Station. But the vehicle is years behind schedule. Its first flight had been scheduled for 2021, but it's been postponed multiple times since then. In fact, the spaceplane's lifting body design has been under development for decades, going all the way back into the 60s. The Sierra Nevada Corporation, now Sierra Space, purchased the design in 2008. NASA funding then allowed the company to continue developing the spacecraft as part of the agency's commercial crew development program. See, Dream Chaser was originally designed to carry crews of up to 7 astronauts to and from the space station. The vehicle was ultimately passed over in 2014 when NASA selected SpaceX's Crew Dragon and Boeing Starliner for its manned space station missions. Crew Dragon's been a huge success. Starliner, not so much. In fact, it's yet to start regular services. But eventually, Dream Chaser was selected as part of NASA's second commercial resupply services contract to send equipment and supplies to the International Space Station, along with the existing service providers, the SpaceX Cargo Dragon and Northrop Grumman's Cygnus. Right now, at least 7 Dream Chaser missions are scheduled for the space station, and the United Nations is planning to use Dream Chaser for at least one mission. The first operational Dream Chaser spacecraft, named Tenacity, has now successfully completed a series of critical pre-flight tests at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida in preparation for its first unmanned mission. The comprehensive testing campaign involves finalization of the electrical system build, including electromagnetic interference and compatibility tests at NASA's Space Systems Processing Facility. These verify the spacecraft's ability to operate within expected electromagnetic environments throughout various mission scenarios. Dream Chaser also completed vigorous tow testing at the Kennedy Space Center and Space Florida's Launch and Landing Facility, using a truck to tow the spaceplane at high speeds in order to simulate critical dynamics and validate autonomous navigation parameters during runway landing operations. Once operational, Dream Chaser will launch on a conventional rocket but return to Earth as a glider, with the aid of parasails landing on a conventional runway. Dream Chaser has also successfully demonstrated its ability to receive telemetry and distribute commands between the spacecraft and Mission Control in Colorado over NASA's Tracking and Data Relay satellite system. That's a key milestone test for the spacecraft's readiness for real-time command and control communications during flight operations. The current testing campaign concluded with a post-landing recovery rehearsal, which demonstrated the safety of the spacecraft systems and quick access to time-sensitive payloads. Dream Chaser will now move on to its final round of acoustic testing next month, together with integrated hardware and software testing and the all-important hot fire test. Despite reports of problems with its propulsion systems, Sierra Space says its tri-mode thrusters have completed qualification and acceptance testing at the company's Badger Propulsion Test Facility in Wisconsin. Following this, modifications for national security applications will be applied, allowing Dream Chaser to demonstrate its ability to fulfill a wide array of mission requirements, including those essential for national security. Dream Chaser is now expected to undertake its first launch to low Earth orbit by this time next year, with a runway landing planned for the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California as part of NASA's CRS-2 contract. But there's still a problem. You see, there are only 5 years of operations left for the International Space Station before it's retired by NASA. And so the long-term future of Dream Chaser will involve finding other customers. There are other privately operated space stations in the offing, and undoubtedly Sierra Space will be looking to service them. But for now at least, construction of a second Dream Chaser, named Reverence, has been put on hold. The news of Dream Chaser's delays came as rumours reported by Politico warned that the ongoing delays in development of SpaceX's Starship mega-rocket could mean the Artemis 3 mission, which will return humans to the lunar surface, will now not fly until at least September 2028. That's more than a year later than currently planned. You see, a version of Starship called the HLS needs to be operational so it can be used to transport crew to and from the Artemis 3 Orion spacecraft, which will be in lunar orbit, down to the moon's surface and then back up again. But SpaceX still needs to refine its in-flight refueling capabilities for this mission. And that's currently slated for testing in June next year. And only after that's perfected can they attempt the first unmanned lunar landing demonstration flight by the HLS. That's currently slated for June 2027, which is close to the time when the Artemis 3 mission was meant to launch. But only when these HLS milestones have been successfully achieved can the historic Artemis 3 mission proceed. And of course, sitting back watching all this is Beijing. China's proceeding with its own man-moon mission. That's now expected to see the first Takonauts walking on the lunar South Pole sometime before 2030. And a permanent joint lunar base with the Russians established at the lunar South Pole within 5 years of that. This is SpaceTime. And time now to take another brief look at some of the other stories making news in science this week with the Science Report. Scientists from the University of Warwick and Monash University have discovered a promising new antibiotic that shows activity against drug-resistant bacterial pathogens, including MRSA and VRE. A report in the Journal of the American Chemical Society warns that antimicrobial resistance remains one of the world's most urgent health challenges, with the World Health Organization's new report showing there are too few antibacterials in the pipeline. Most of the low-hanging fruit has already been found, and the limited commercial incentives deter investment in antibiotic discovery. New research suggests that the so-called Band of Holes archaeological site in the Andes may have actually been an ancient marketplace. The findings, reported in the journal Antiquity, follow detailed studies by scientists from the University of Sydney. Officially known as Monte Serapi or Serpent Mountain, the feature is located in the Pisco Valley of southern Peru and consists of over 5,000 precisely aligned holes. The striking yet puzzling site has been baffling archaeologists and the wider public for decades. A new study shows that dogs already came in a wide variety of shapes and sizes long before modern breeding patterns were established. A report in the journal Science used three-dimensional analysis to examine 643 skulls spanning 50,000 years, finding that distinct dog-like skull traits first appeared around 10,000 years ago. They found that dogs from this period had roughly the same range of head shapes and sizes which is seen in modern dogs today, but they had twice that of their more ancient wolf ancestors. The research contributes to a wider understanding of the domestication of dogs as a complex, multifaceted biological and cultural process in which thousands of years of human and canine history were intertwined. Well, you can forget about monsters under your bed. There's a medium out there who claims the real threat are demons in your bedroom mirror. Tim Mendham from Australian Skeptic says this wacky woman who claims to speak to the dead warns never to have a mirror facing your bed because the demons will get you.
This is a psychic and a clearance person who clears ghosts out, looks after you, who's made the claim that if you have a mirror in your bedroom facing the bed, you're likely to allow demons to enter your room. I think you have a misunderstanding of what a mirror does, actually. Yeah, there's a thing painted on the back that stops the light going straight through, presuming energy going straight through. It's supposed to be a portal, right? That a mirror on your wall, on your dressing table, on a wardrobe, and not just having to face the bed, anywhere. And I don't know why the bedroom necessarily, could be the bathroom. They have mirrors. A lot of homes have mirrors in living rooms and that sort of stuff anyway. So, I mean, apparently, if you're doing this, something that isn't particularly nice, which is the wording that was used, is going to come through. And you can even sort of point the mirror in different directions, even actually showing it reflecting out the window. It's still going to invite unwanted spirits. You can cover the mirror, though, with a cloth. I don't know how that works, but you can cover the mirror with a cloth, and that sort of keeps the demon out, a rather weak demon, I would say. You can't even get a second-hand mirror because they have withheld energy, and therefore they drag up the evil spirits associated with the previous owner. So basically get rid of mirrors, I guess, and you won't get demons entering your bedroom.
What is it about mirrors? I mean, 7 years bad luck, portals to the underworld. Well,
it's Alice through the looking glass. It's supposedly a reflection of another world, but of course it's not the other world. It's the world you're in because it's just a reflection. So it's not a doorway, but it is reversed, of course. And the funny thing is most of us, when we look at a mirror, we think that's what we look like, because it's actually back to front.
Yeah, it's only when you look at yourself on TV, you realise, hey...
That's what it looked like. That's right, yeah. After the part, that might explain why we always think we look worse on TV or in photos. I don't know what it's about mirrors. You know, you break your mirror, 7 years bad luck. Is that because you're breaking a portal through to another world? Is a mirror just a window, the same as this world, just reversed? Or are there awful things on the other side? Like in this case, there's demons and things. It's a strange thing that something has associated with a mirror and other worlds, doorways and portals and that sort of stuff. It's quite fascinating. I'm sure you're someone to do a study on it, but I don't think having a mirror facing your bed is actually going to be the major issue in your life.
That's Tim Mendham from Australian Skeptics. And that's the show for now. SpaceTime is available every Monday, Wednesday and Friday through Bytes.com, SoundCloud, YouTube, your favourite podcast download provider, and from spacetimewithstuartgary.com. SpaceTime's also broadcast through the National Science Foundation on Science Zone Radio and on both iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. And you can help to support our show by visiting the SpaceTime store for a range of promotional merchandising goodies. Or by becoming a SpaceTime patron, which gives you access to triple episode commercial-free versions of the show, as well as lots of bonus audio content which doesn't go to air, access to our exclusive Facebook group, and other rewards. Just go to spacetimewithstuartgary.com for full details.
You've been listening to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary. This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.